Bilingual web magazine, Dig Tokyo. Music and Parties 007. The music that shaped me. 1. Prologue. I've listed up some of the albums that have shaped who I am. The list spans a love for classic rock passed on to me from my father, contemporary R&B that captivated me as I grew up in the 90s, progressive house music that became an obsession after moving to Tokyo, and jazz fusion that Big Brother turned me on to. 2. Led Zeppelin, Mothership. My father was a professional rock guitarist in his native El Salvador, but he immigrated to the US in search of bigger success. Apparently he was an especially big fan of Led Zeppelin. However, he found that making it in music in America, the nexus of rock music, wasn't for him, and he ultimately became an engineer for companies like IBM and Intel. Nonetheless, even after I was born, on weekends when he had a little downtime, he would play his guitar or mess around on his DAW of choice, Cakewalk. It was his way of unwinding. When he had a little bit of Sapporo beer, his favorite, in him, and was a little tipsy, he would play Stairway to Heaven on his Yamaha Classic guitar. Footnote: Led Zeppelin, founded in London in 1968, is one of the most iconic rock bands of the 70s. Their mind-blowing sound incorporates psychedelic rock, blues, Celtic and other folk music, and forever changed all rock music to come, and played an important role in the development of heavy metal. 3. Boyz II Men, 2. The first CD I ever bought was Boyz II Men's 1994 album, 2. Lead single I'll Make Love to You is vintage Boyz II Men on par with their 1992 hit End of the Road, and the first track Thank You is a personal favorite. I will be the first to admit that I was initially taken with their sweet vocal harmonies, but after graduating from UCLA and dabbling in DJing in Japan, I picked up a collection of Boyz II Men remixes at Manhattan Records in Shibuya. The more I played those tracks, the more I began to understand the importance of the producer on an R&B record. I realized that even if you were listening to the same melody, tracks could sound completely different depending on the mixing engineer and/or producer. It also turned me on to the brilliance of Babyface and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who each produced a number of tracks on 2. Footnote: Boyz II Men is a vocal group that formed in Philadelphia in the 80s. They are best known for their a cappella harmonies and a string of hit ballads in the 90s. Footnote: Babyface is an American singer, songwriter, and music producer. He has written countless hits for a range of musicians, especially between the 80s and 90s, and played an important role in defining the sound of contemporary R&B. Footnote: Jam and Lewis are an American songwriting producer duo. They got their start as founding members of The Time, which came to prominence in the 80s as the opening act for Prince. They are known for a string of hits that they wrote and produced for a range of musicians in the 80s and 90s, and played an important role in defining the sound of contemporary R&B. Footnote: Manhattan Records is a long-standing record shop that opened its doors in Shibuya in 1980. It played a leading role in shaping Japanese hip-hop in the 90s. It mostly sells hip-hop, R&B, and reggae records. 4. Santana, Lotus. Guitarist Carlos Santana is a musician I have long been interested in, not least because of his Latin American roots. However, it wasn't until I listened to this triple live album that I truly felt the power of Santana's music. These heavyweight vinyls are cut from the latest digital remaster of this legendary Japanese live recording. You'll feel that time and place being brought to life. Another defining feature of the album is the 22-panel jacket designed by well-known Japanese artist Yoko Tadanori. Today, Santana is known for endorsing Paul Reed Smith guitars, but it's interesting to note that at the time this concert was recorded, he played a Japanese Yamaha SG-175. In a way, I think Carlos Santana is a senpai, someone whose footsteps I follow, on account of his Latin background, his roots in San Francisco, and his fusion of various elements with Japanese culture. Footnote: Carlos Santana is a Mexican-American guitarist known for fusing rock with jazz, Latin music, and world music. To date, he has won 10 Grammy Awards. Footnote: Yoko Tadanori is a Japanese artist and graphic designer from Hyogo Prefecture. He gained international recognition in the 60s with his innovative poster designs, which were characterized by a distinctive Japanese take on pop art. He became a painter in 1981 and has continued to remain active across a range of genres. 5. John Digweed, live in Brooklyn, Output NYC. Sasha, Refracted live. The progressive house sound of Sasha and John Digweed playing back-to-back, which I most recently experienced at Ultra Japan 2017, has had a profound effect on my life. While I lived in California, I was never particularly interested in the nightclub scene. I had a low opinion of electronic music, and the nightlife was too seedy and rough for a square. But during my time studying abroad at Sophia University, a friend took me to something called Club Phazon Womb Mobile Project. The headliners just happened to be Sasha and John Digweed, and I became a devotee overnight. I was hooked, and so after graduating from college, I made it a point to do some work helping out DJ and computer music production-related projects, alongside interpreting and translating work. Lately, it's become fairly easy to come across MP3 audio of live DJ sets, and in that sense, it's a godsend to be able to hear the likes of Sasha and Digweed working their magic in a variety of settings. But at the end of the day, you want to hear at least CD quality audio to appreciate the music these guys put out into the world. Or even better, get even deeper with high-resolution audio. Footnote: John Digweed is a British DJ and music producer, regarded as a leading figure for decades in the progressive house scene. He toured the world in the 90s along with fellow British DJ Sasha, and became one of the first true superstar DJs. The British monthly DJ magazine named him the world's #1 DJ in 2001. Footnote: Sasha is a British DJ and music producer, regarded as a leading figure for decades in the progressive house scene. He produced a string of mix compilations along with John Digweed, whose success brought the form out of the underground and into commercial viability. The British monthly DJ magazine named him the world's #1 DJ in 2000. Footnote: Womb is one of the best-known nightclubs in Tokyo. It boasts Asia's largest mirror ball and a world-class sound system. It hosts mostly house, techno, and drum and bass events. 6. Weather Report, 8:30. Jaco Pastorius. Jaco Pastorius. After taking up DJing and listening to more and more vinyl records, I started becoming obsessed with the sound of vinyl. I was surprised to find that vinyl carries a kind of human touch that is different from the sound of CDs and digital audio files. What's more, with vinyl you have the added fun of experiencing playback using different needles. For house music and other 4-on-the-floor stuff, I like to use the Ortophone Nightclub series. For R&B, I like to use the Shure M44G. It adds a new dimension to the experience. Currently, I've put away the Technics DJ turntables and have been using the Denon DP500M high-fidelity turntable with an Audio-Technica AT33EV needle to listen to jazz. My personal favorites are Weather Report and one-time Weather Report member, bassist Jaco Pastorius. My dream concert would be to see Jaco Pastorius in his prime play one of my favorite venues, Blue Note Tokyo in Aoyama. Footnote: Weather Report is an American jazz fusion band that was active throughout the 70s and 80s. Originally formed as an avant-garde jazz group, it gradually incorporated elements of funk, R&B, and world music under the co-leadership of keyboardist Joe Zawinul and saxophonist Wayne Shorter. The band became the rock stars of the jazz world after bassist Jaco Pastorius joined in 1976. Footnote: Jaco Pastorius was a bassist and composer, and is considered one of the greatest electric bassists not only of jazz fusion, but of all time. He is remembered for his innovative and game-changing technical skill, and a style and stage presence that treated the bass as a lead instrument. Footnote: Ortophone Concord Twin Nightclub Mark II. This DJ cartridge has long been a classic among professional techno and house DJs. Footnote: Shure M44G. No longer in production, this DJ cartridge was long considered an industry standard among hip-hop and R&B DJs. Footnote: Audio-Technica AT33EV. The AT33 series is one of Japanese audio equipment maker Audio-Technica's bestsellers. It is best suited for playing jazz and classical music records. Footnote: Technics is the audio equipment brand run by Panasonic. It is best known for the iconic SL1200 turntable series, which became an industry standard in clubs around the world in the 1980s. The latest model, the SL1200 Mark VI, went out of production in 2010, but the brand was recently revived in 2014. Footnote: Blue Note Tokyo is the Tokyo branch of the New York landmark jazz club Blue Note. It opened in 1988 and has been a leading light of the Tokyo jazz scene ever since. 7. Epilogue. Big Brother is always lamenting the fact that the Japanese are able to engineer world-class audio equipment, brands like Yamaha, Pioneer, and Technics, but the quality of the sound engineering here is so abysmal. He says the use of the sound systems in Japan's nightclubs is of such low quality it's beneath debate. And likewise, the sound quality at concerts and on CDs is so bad that it's hard to believe a professional engineered them. Perhaps, he says, it's because they've never been exposed to good sound in their entire lives. In Europe and America, you get the sense many industry professionals were born into good sound, exposed to auditory stimuli such as live classical music before they could walk and talk. In Japan, however, industry veterans grew up into their mid to late teens knowing only the distorted sound of a radio cassette player. As for the younger generation of industry professionals, it seems safe to assume most grew up listening to MP3 quality music on a smartphone, using the kind of earphones that came packaged with the smartphone itself. Being obsessed with what is good music is certainly admirable, but it's equally important to think about what exactly is good sound. After all, Big Brother says, listening to good music at good sound quality is one of life's most wondrous pleasures. Music and Parties 007. The music that shaped me. www.digtokyo.jp